The arrival. The peaceful colony of Luminara lay nestled in the fertile valleys of Solus, a quiet refuge far from the bustling centers of human expansion. Life here was simple, predictable, and calm. Eli Carter, a widowed mechanic and devoted father, cherished this tranquility for his 7-year-old daughter Mia. The day began like any other. Villagers tended their fields while children laughed as they played near the crystal-clear river. But as the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, the serene sky of Luminara turned ominous. A low hum grew steadily louder, reverberating through the air like a mechanical heartbeat. Villagers froze, their eyes fixed skyward as a massive, angular spaceship emerged from the clouds. The vessel's hull gleamed a sinister black, its edges etched with crimson runes that seemed to glow with their own malevolent light. The ship descended slowly, casting a shadow that swallowed the village square whole. "Stay close to me," Eli whispered, hurriedly grabbing Mia's hand. His voice remained steady, but his heart raced like a drum. "What is it, Daddy?" Mia asked, her innocent eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. "I don't know," Eli replied, shielding her as the ship touched down with a sharp hiss of pressurized air. A ramp extended from the vessel, its surface sleek and menacing. From within the ship emerged a group of aliens unlike any the colonists had ever seen, the Zorians. They were tall and imposing, their metallic armor etched with jagged patterns that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. At their head stood Commander Vex, his crimson cape billowing as he descended the ramp. His reptilian features were framed by ridges that gleamed in the fading sunlight. Behind him, a deep growl rumbled, vibrating the very ground beneath everyone's feet. Out of the shadows lumbered a creature that silenced the entire crowd. It was the Fthra, a monstrous alien tiger the size of a small vehicle. Its jet-black fur shimmered faintly, and its golden eyes glowed with an intense, almost hypnotic brilliance. Massive claws clicked against the metal ramp with each step, and with every movement, its growls deepened. The beast radiated raw power and ferocity, a living weapon bred for destruction. The villagers recoiled, fear gripping their hearts as the Fthra roared. The sound echoed through the square like thunder. Eli pulled Mia behind him, his grip on her hand tightening protectively. "People of Luminara," Commander Vex's voice boomed, amplified by a device on his chest. "You now stand under the watch of the Zorian Dominion. Submit to our rule, or face the wrath of the Fthra." The creature let out another earth-shaking roar, its claws digging into the dirt as it lowered its head, ready to pounce. The villagers gasped, trembling as they huddled together like frightened sheep. Eli's eyes darted around desperately, searching for any way to protect Mia. But there was no escape, nowhere to run. "Daddy," Mia whispered, clutching her stuffed tiger tightly, "why does the kitty look so angry?" Eli couldn't answer. His mind raced, but there were no solutions to this nightmare that had descended upon their peaceful world. The demonstration. To solidify their dominance, the Zorians staged a terrifying demonstration. Commander Vex barked a sharp command, and a group of his soldiers brought forth a massive metal obelisk into the center of the square. It was enormous, its surface reinforced with alien alloys designed to withstand incredible force. The Fthra was unchained. With another sharp command from Vex, the beast roared and leaped at the obelisk. Its claws sliced through the reinforced metal like butter, leaving deep gouges in its surface. With one powerful swipe, the entire structure crumbled to the ground, its pieces scattering like leaves in a hurricane. The villagers gasped, their terror growing as the Fthra turned toward them, its glowing eyes scanning the crowd hungrily. The beast growled low, stepping closer to the frightened humans. The Zorian soldiers held its chain loosely, making no real effort to restrain it further. Commander Vex smirked, his voice dripping with cold arrogance. "This is the power of the Fthra. Obey us, or your village will meet the same fate as that metal." Eli held Mia tightly, his mind racing for a way to get her out of the square safely. But before he could act, Mia wriggled free of his protective grip. "Mia, no," he hissed, reaching for her desperately. But she had already stepped forward, walking directly toward the massive predator. The Fthra's ears twitched, and its glowing golden eyes fixed on the small figure approaching it with impossible calm. "Mia!" Eli shouted, his voice echoing across the square in panic. The villagers gasped in horror, and even the Zorians froze, their expressions shifting to a mixture of amusement and disbelief. This tiny human child was walking straight toward their ultimate weapon. "Get back here!" Eli pleaded, but Mia kept walking. She clutched her stuffed tiger tightly, her wide eyes filled with curiosity rather than the fear that gripped every adult around her. "It's okay, Daddy," she called over her shoulder with innocent confidence. "The kitty's just sad." Commander Vex barked a harsh laugh. "Your child has courage, human. Or perhaps it's just foolishness." The Fthra growled louder, lowering its massive head to Mia's level. The villagers held their breath, expecting the worst, expecting to witness something no parent should ever see. But Mia stopped just inches from the beast, completely unafraid. She tilted her head, studying the creature with the same curiosity she might show a neighborhood cat. "You're not scary," she said softly, holding up her stuffed tiger so the Fthra could see it. "You're just lonely, aren't you?" Then, to the utter shock of everyone present, Mia leaned forward and gently kissed the Fthra on its massive nose. The square fell deathly silent. The impossible bond. The Fthra blinked, its fearsome growl faltering completely. Slowly, incredibly, the massive beast lowered itself to the ground, resting its enormous head on its paws. Instead of the terrifying roar everyone expected, it let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but a purr. The Zorians stared in stunned silence. Commander Vex's confident smirk vanished, replaced by genuine confusion and something that might have been fear. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded, his voice no longer carrying its earlier arrogance. Eli rushed forward, scooping Mia into his arms. His heart pounded as he stared at the Fthra, now calm and docile, like an oversized house cat. The villagers whispered among themselves, their terror slowly replaced by awe and wonder. "See, Daddy." Mia looked up at her father with a triumphant smile. "The kitty likes me." Eli held her tightly, his mind racing to make sense of what he had just witnessed. The Fthra, a creature bred for destruction, feared across the galaxy, had been tamed by the simple innocence of a child. Commander Vex stepped forward, his sharp reptilian eyes narrowing as he studied Mia with new interest. "This changes everything," he muttered under his breath. Eli's protective instincts flared. He tightened his grip on his daughter, backing away from the alien commander. Whatever this meant, he knew their lives had just become infinitely more complicated. That evening, Eli carried Mia back to their modest home, his heart still racing from the events in the square. The villagers remained outside, murmuring in disbelief at what they had witnessed. Inside the house, Eli set Mia down and crouched in front of her, his hands resting gently on her small shoulders. "Mia," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "do you understand what you just did? That creature could have hurt you. It could have killed you. But it didn't, Daddy," Mia replied calmly, her tone matter-of-fact. "Shadow's not mean." "Shadow?" Eli repeated, confused. "That's his name," Mia explained, holding up her stuffed tiger. "He looks like Mr. Shadow here, only much bigger." Eli sat back on his heels, running a hand through his hair. How could he explain the unexplainable? How could his daughter, with no fear and nothing but pure kindness, have accomplished what entire armies could not? Before Eli could say more, a firm knock sounded at their door. He opened it to find Commander Vex standing there, flanked by two Zorian guards. The commander's crimson eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," Vex said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Eli stiffened, instinctively moving to shield Mia with his body. "What do you want?" "The Fthra," Vex began, his tone measured and serious, "is the pride of the Zorian Dominion. It is a creature bred for war, loyal only to us. And yet your child has done what no Zorian handler has ever achieved." Eli frowned. "What are you saying?" I'm saying this bond is unprecedented, Vex admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. We don't understand it. The Fthra does not bond with anyone. It obeys commands, follows orders, and destroys. But with your daughter. He trailed off, studying Mia with a mixture of fascination and concern that made Eli's blood run cold. The choice. Over the following days, the Zorian occupation of Luminara took an unexpected turn. Instead of the brutal subjugation everyone had feared, Commander Vex seemed more interested in studying Mia and her impossible connection with the Fthra. The massive beast, whom Mia continued to call Shadow, had become completely docile around her. It would follow her around the village like an enormous, deadly pet, purring whenever she was near and growing agitated only when separated from her for too long. The villagers watched in amazement as the 7-year-old girl played with the galaxy's most feared predator, throwing sticks for it to fetch and even braiding small flowers into its dark fur. The Zorian soldiers, meanwhile, seemed increasingly uncomfortable with this development. Eli barely slept, constantly watching over his daughter and trying to understand what the aliens truly wanted. His answer came on the 4th day when Vex approached him privately. We're leaving Luminara, the commander announced abruptly. Eli felt a surge of hope. Good. Then we can return to our normal lives. Not all of us, Vex said, his reptilian eyes fixed on Eli with unsettling intensity. The child comes with us. Absolutely not, Eli growled, stepping protectively in front of where Mia was playing with Shadow nearby. She's not going anywhere. Vex's expression hardened. You misunderstand. This isn't a request. The bond between your daughter and the Fthra is beyond our comprehension, but it's also incredibly valuable. The Zorian High Command wants to study it, to understand how such a connection is possible. She's just a child, Eli pleaded. She doesn't understand what she's done. Please, leave her be. That innocence is exactly what makes her so remarkable, Vex replied coldly. We cannot risk losing this opportunity. The child will come with us, willingly or not. Eli's mind raced. He looked at Mia, who was laughing as Shadow gently nuzzled her with its massive head. The creature that had struck terror into an entire village now seemed incapable of harming a single hair on her head. What if I refuse? Eli asked quietly. Vex gestured to his armed soldiers surrounding them. Then you'll watch your village burn, and we'll take her anyway. At least this way, Luminara survives. That night, Eli sat Mia down for the hardest conversation of his life. He explained, as gently as he could, that they would be going on a journey with the Zorians. Will Shadow come too? Mia asked, her main concern predictably focused on her new friend. Yes, Eli said, his heart breaking. Shadow will come with us. Mia smiled brightly. Then it'll be an adventure. Eli wished he could share her optimism, but he knew they were walking into the unknown, possibly never to return home again. The next morning, as the Zorian ship prepared for departure, something unexpected happened. The villagers of Luminara gathered around Eli and Mia, not in fear, but in gratitude. You saved us, the village elder said simply. Your daughter's courage saved us all from destruction. One by one, the villagers approached to say goodbye, many of them touching Mia's hand or offering small gifts for her journey. Even in their sadness at losing the girl who had become their unlikely savior, they understood the sacrifice she was making for their survival. As they boarded the alien vessel, Eli held Mia close, whispering promises that somehow, someway, he would find a way to bring her home safely. Shadow, meanwhile, seemed completely content as long as Mia was near, padding alongside her with the loyalty of a devoted guardian rather than a weapon of war. The galaxy's hope. The journey to the Zorian homeworld took several weeks. During this time, Mia's bond with Shadow grew even stronger, and something remarkable began to happen. The crew members, initially terrified of the Fthra, started to see it differently. Through Mia's eyes, they began to understand that Shadow wasn't just a weapon, it was a living being capable of emotion, loyalty, and even love. Commander Vex watched these developments with growing unease. His reports to the High Command became increasingly difficult to write. How could he explain that their ultimate weapon had been transformed into something resembling a pet? When they finally reached the Zorian capital, Mia and Shadow were brought before the High Council, a group of ancient, powerful Zorians who ruled their vast empire with an iron fist. The council chamber was vast and intimidating, filled with floating platforms where the most important Zorians in the galaxy observed the proceedings. "So," spoke the Supreme Chancellor, his voice echoing through the chamber, "this is the human child who has accomplished the impossible." Mia looked up at the towering alien with the same fearless curiosity she showed everyone. "Hello," she said politely. "Your house is very big." A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Even the Supreme Chancellor seemed taken aback by her casual greeting. Eli stepped forward, his protective instincts overriding his fear. "Please, she's just a child. Whatever you want to learn from her, surely there's another way." "Silence," the Chancellor commanded, but his tone lacked its usual authority. He was studying Mia with fascination. "Child, do you understand what you have done? You have tamed the untamable." Mia shrugged. Shadow was never mean. He was just lonely and scared. "Sometimes when you're scared, you act mean, but that doesn't make you a bad person, or kitty." The simplicity of her words struck the chamber like a thunderbolt. For the first time in centuries, the Zorian High Council was speechless. Over the following days, as the council deliberated Mia's fate, something unprecedented began to happen throughout the Zorian Empire. Word spread of the human child who had shown kindness to their most feared weapon. Stories traveled from ship to ship, planet to planet, of how a 7-year-old girl had seen past the monster to the lonely creature within. The Zorians, a species that had built their empire on fear and conquest, began to question their methods. If a small human child could show such compassion to their ultimate weapon, what did that say about their own capacity for change? Commander Vex found himself at the center of this transformation. His soldiers, who had witnessed Mia's kindness firsthand, began to speak quietly among themselves about different ways to approach their duties. The fear-based control that had held the Empire together for so long started to crack. Finally, after much deliberation, the Supreme Chancellor made a decision that shocked everyone. "The child will be returned to her home," he announced. "But not as our prisoner. As our teacher." The council chamber erupted in surprised voices, but the Chancellor continued. "For too long, we have ruled through fear and domination. This child has shown us that there is strength in gentleness, power in compassion. Perhaps it is time for the Zorian Empire to learn a new way." And so, Mia and Eli were returned to Luminera, but not alone. Shadow came with them, no longer a weapon of war but a friend and protector. More importantly, they carried with them the seeds of change that would transform an entire galaxy. The Zorian Empire didn't disappear overnight, but it began to evolve. Planets that had been ruled through fear found themselves governed with a gentler hand. The Fthra, once bred solely for destruction, were allowed to live more natural lives. And throughout the galaxy, the story was told of a little girl who had changed everything with nothing more than kindness and a kiss. Years later, when Mia was grown and had children of her own, she would tell them the story of how sometimes the smallest acts of love can transform the largest hearts. Shadow, now old and gray but still devoted to his human family, would purr contentedly by the fireplace as she spoke. The galaxy had learned that true strength didn't come from inspiring fear, but from inspiring hope. And it all began with a 7-year-old girl who saw a lonely creature where others saw only a monster. In the end, they had called humans weak, but Mia Carter had proven that compassion was the strongest force in the universe. The end.